From Ariel A001, quote, do you know how many Israelis killed during our wars with Egypt since 1947, 1948? Over 10,000. So yes, what we had in the past 30 years is better than a real war, which you clearly know nothing about. Talking from your basement is easy while others are fighting and risking their lives. You have no value to people's lives, unquote. Ariel, first of all, 10,000 people were not killed in the wars with Egypt since 1947, 1948. You're very ignorant about numbers. That's number one. Number two, when you talk about talking from my basement, I spent 5.5 years in prison fighting to get 1 million Soviet Jews into Israel. The country you live in would be a joke now if not for what we did to liberate Soviet Jews. Okay? Where I was for 5.5 years, in the prisons that I was in for 5.5 years, fighting to get Jews into Israel, something you never did and never could do. Where I was for 5.5 years, you would not last for 5.5 minutes. Okay? So don't tell me about knowing about fighting battles, because you are the one that knows nothing about fighting battles. And as far as what you call that we don't have a war with Egypt, a real war for the past 30 years. You don't have a war with Syria for the past 30 years. There's been no war since 1982 with Syria. And you didn't give them the Golan Heights. How come there's no war with Syria for the past 30 years? The reason there's no war with Syria is because Syria doesn't want to lose. And the reason there's no war with Egypt is not because you have a worthless piece of paper treaty. The reason is because Egypt doesn't want to lose the Sinai again. And because they're waiting for self-hating Jews like you, cowardly, self-hating Jews like you who are afraid to fight, who don't have the courage to fight. People like you who don't have the courage. They're waiting for people like you to give in and give them Judea and Samaria. Give them Yehuda, Veshomron, the Yerushalayim, the Ramat HaGolan, just like you gave them Sinai. They're waiting for that. They're waiting for you to give them even more so that Israel will be so weak that then Egypt and Jordan and Syria and the whole Arab world will attack again and will move in to destroy Israel, God forbid. It is Jews like you that cause Jews to be murdered in wars. Jews like you that are responsible for the deaths of thousands of Israeli Jews. Jews like you that did this. Because every retreat, every surrender, every concession, every gesture that is made to the Arab Muslim Nazi enemy has brought the Jews of Israel nothing but more war, more blood, more terror, and more catastrophe. And you call this peace? Hundreds of Jews were murdered by the Egyptian army. By the Egyptian army because of the surrender of Sinai, because they're smuggling weapons into the PLO, Hamas, and Fatah terrorists in Gaza. And you call that, you have the nerve to call that peace. You want to call that peace because you're a coward. The Jews that were murdered by you, by Jews like you murdered them. You murdered them. And by the way, I'm sorry, it's Ariella. Ariella writes this, not Ariel. Ariella. I'm seeing now the name here. I didn't see the name properly before. Ariella. It's Jews like you that murder them because you don't have the courage to stand up for what's right. You're the one. You're so desperate to give up and give in and surrender and believe, oh, maybe they want peace. Oh, maybe we could do something nice. Oh, maybe we can make nice with them. You are so unable to face reality because of people like you. Jews are murdered. The only hope for preventing war is with Jews like the organization that we represent. Jews like you are the reason the Arabs are able to murder Jews. And now we go on to OC00010. And the first question is, thank you for your reply. I strongly disagree with your views, but at least your intentions are for the well-being of the Jewish people so that we have that in common, despite extreme contrasts in approach. To answer your question, I'm writing solid facts with sources to back them up so you can check it. Looking forward to hearing your consequent counter-arguments, although this time I doubt you'll be able to make one, as I will solely use objectivity and fact. Anyway, regarding black people having pre-colonial civilization, written language, etc. Question 2. The ancient black African civilization mentioned is so-called Demit, located in Ethiopia and Eritrea, created by its indigenous blacks. They developed irrigation schemes, used plows, grew millet, and made iron tools and weapons. Munro, hay, Axum, an African civilization of late antiquity. Edinburgh University Press, 1991, page 57. An ancient written language called Nisibidi is independent of Roman, Latin, or Semitic influence, completely indigenous in creation. This is in southern Nigeria, where there is Giez, which initially began as a written language as early as 8th century BCE. In terms of philosophy, yes, there were read Bantu philosophy by temples. In terms of architecture, there was Zulu and Nguni architecture, Sotho, Tiswani. Also, you should seriously research the kingdom of Mapungubwe, located in southern Africa, very complex and pre-colonial society, unquote. Oh, you can't be serious here. You can't be serious. First of all, Ethiopia and Eritrea are not sub-Saharan blacks. Those are not real blacks. Now, some of them have more black blood in them because black slaves were brought there, but these are people, even today, most of the people there have Caucasian facial features. They're not sub-Saharan blacks at all. This is not black Africa. Okay? Now, a lot of them have more of the black features. But even today, you still see they have the Caucasian facial features. Many of the Ethiopians and the Eritreans, most of them still have Caucasian facial features. That was not, these cultures you're referring to were not black. They were not sub-Saharan. That's not black Africa. That's completely different. That is not black Africa. The blacks want to claim that today, but it is not black Africa. And whatever this minor thing that you're talking about in southern Nigeria, you say that there was some minor language written in one tiny little corner of the gigantic continent of the gigantic black Africa. There was one tiny little corner where they might have written something. I don't know, but if it was very minor, and it was certainly a joke. If that's all you can bring, that was certainly a joke. And you're saying Bantu philosophy? Are you kidding? You can't be serious. Bantu philosophy and architecture? And Zulu and Nguni architecture? You're calling that architecture, and you're referring to the Bantus as you're calling that philosophy? What they have was and is a joke. It is a joke today. Even to this day, they're uncivilized. Even to this day, they're illiterate. Even to this day, they can't last 5 minutes without white aid, white medicine, white support, white architecture, white philosophy, white religions, white written languages. They can't last 5 minutes without whites. To this day. And certainly in ancient times, when they were living in the jungles, it was even worse. And you're saying complex and pre-colonial society that had complex society, complex. And you can't really believe what you're writing here. I mean, you can't really believe that they're not complex today. Today, their society is a joke. You're telling me that thousands of years ago they had the complex societies? You can't be serious. I mean, you can't be serious. I hope you're not serious. I hope it isn't that easy to brainwash people. And now, question number 3. Now, regarding Israel, giving them the Sinai led to an absolute stop in attacks towards our people. In my view, this is more important than economic growth of our country. This view should be yours, also considering the value you expressed in a Jew's life. Egypt's regime actually took a lot of measures to prevent weapons smuggling to Hamas. They risked their own necks for this. And the peace made with Jordan. Also, we haven't had a single act of military aggression from them since. Peace can work and should, unquote. Well, we already went through this, where we already explained that hundreds of Jews have been murdered from the Sinai because of the Egyptian military. You're saying, you are defending our enemies here. You are so anxious to appease and so anxious to surrender and so anxious to prove that it's okay to surrender that you are defending our enemies and deliberately closing your eyes to reality. Egypt always was and always will be committed to the destruction of Israel, and they're going to use the Sinai as a launching pad for the next war. There's going to be a war between Israel and Egypt, and between Israel and Egypt. And if we had the Sinai, we would be in a much stronger position and a much safer position. The giving away of the Sinai was a disaster. Hundreds of Jews have been murdered because of the giving away of the Sinai. Hundreds of Jews have been murdered because of that. The terrorist attacks from Gaza that have taken the lives of hundreds of Jews over the years. A lot of the terrorist attacks in Judea and Samaria also, because the weapons went from Gaza through to Judea and Samaria. Some of them also went around. the smuggling through the tunnels. You're saying that the Egyptians tried to prevent it? Are you joking? They had dozens of tunnels right there, right under the noses of the Egyptian army, and you're saying they tried to prevent it? I mean, these are just lies. These are obvious, ridiculous lies. There is no question that those tunnels were deliberately put there with the full complicity and support of the Egyptian military. Hamas and Fatah and all these terrorist organizations would have nothing, zero, if the Egyptian military didn't want them to have it. Zero. They would not have gotten anything in if the Egyptian military didn't want them to have it. And you are knowingly closing your eyes to this. Knowingly closing your eyes because you're so desperate to appease our enemies and to surrender to our enemies and to prove to yourself that the policies of withdrawal and appeasement and retreat and surrender and betrayal of the land of Israel, that this is the way to go. You're so desperate to prove this that you're willing to close your eyes to reality, and that attitude is what leads to the murder of many Jews. And finally, question 4. And lastly, regarding Muslims, what I'm about to say is a very serious point, and I want you to consider it despite it being against your very career in politics. Show me that you have the bravery towards seeking truth with an open mind, so here goes. Every religious scriptures of every faith have contradictions. This is why you have one Tzaddik Ashkenazi arguing with one Tzaddik Sfaradi about interpretations of the Torah, likewise with other religions. So this comes to show that the verses you focus on are the verses that are inevitably argued against by some Muslims, just as the peaceful verses are argued against by some extremist Nazi Muslims. I'll give you a crucial example, Quran 17:104, and we said thereafter to the children of Israel, dwell securely in the land of promise, unquote. There are no verses in the Quran that are peaceful. None. The entire Quran is a book that Winston Churchill described as the Mein Kampf of war, that he compared to Hitler's Mein Kampf. Are you going to say there are peaceful verses in Hitler's book, Mein Kampf? Does that also have peaceful verses? There are no peaceful verses in the Quran. The quote that you brought me is an example. The quote you brought, you want to use that quote? Okay, let's use that quote as an example. Quran 17:104, and we said thereafter to the children of Israel, dwell securely in the land of promise. Perfect quote. Who are the children of Israel according to the Quran? The Quran claims the children of Israel were Muslims. They claim the Jewish people never existed and have no right to exist. They say that Judaism is a lie, the Torah is a lie, the Jews are liars, that the children of Israel were Muslims, that David HaMelech, King David, was really Daud, a Muslim. That Moshe Rabbeinu was Musa, a Muslim. Moshe Rabbeinu meaning Moses, he was a Muslim, Musa. All of the Hebrew prophets, they claim, were Muslims. They say we have no legitimacy and no rights, and that we're liars and cheats and should be destroyed and exterminated. And this latest verse, this is just another example. The children of Israel, he's saying to the children of Israel, those children of Israel, according to the Quran, are Muslims. They say we don't even have a right to breathe. That is the Quran. And that's the peaceful verses that you found. That's from the so-called peaceful verses. There is nothing peaceful about a religion founded by a monster who said that you have to conquer the whole world for jihad. People who say you have to conquer the whole world and destroy anyone who disagrees with you, people like that are people like Stalin and Hitler and Mohammed. And you can't have peace with people like that. You have to defeat them if you want to survive and if you truly want peace.